what is it that India brings in terms of inland waterways that makes it a focus area for you?
India is also becoming, I think, factory of the world.
Does Assam have a unique position when it comes to its geographical advantage? Or
I do believe there are a lot of studies that has to be done. Challenging factor is that if you look to the Brahmaputra here in Assam, it's a landlocked river system because you need to go over Bangladesh if you want to make the connection to the other part of the continent of India.
how do you think with the development of the inland waterway, can Assam position itself as the leader?
Assam can be the key point and let's say an authority on how the river needs to be developed as such.
We all know that roads in India are sometimes a bit congested, but if you can take that cargo away from the roads, that can lower down the impact on the people and on the villages.
What kind of best practices are being brought to Guwahati and Assam?
Nowadays it's not there anymore because of political reasons.
In this conversation, we'll hear from them about Assam's unique potential, the global learnings that come along with them, and how sustainable solutions can be created and tailor-made to cater to regional needs. Let's get started. Very happy to have you on the show, Koen, Achille. Welcome to Guwahati. I understand you've been here for quite some time.
Yes, we are now working since the beginning of this year for projects in Assam. Yeah, so it's the third visit nowadays, and we still plan a visit next year in 2025.
All right. And what is it that you've been doing, Koen? If you could please share some information on a little bit on your background.
My background, it's a huge one, but no. Working for Port of Antwerp-Bruges International, we are doing projects, everything what Port of Antwerp-Bruges is doing locally in Belgium. We are trying to sell the word as well internationally, so doing projects worldwide, helping, guiding people, consulting, doing consultation works for ports, inland ports environments, everything what has to do with the supply chain.
All right. And what about you, Achille? How long have you been working for the Port of Antwerp?
It will be 2 years and a half, I think this month or next month, I'm not sure. I started in July 2022. Mainly working on supply chain related topics, also commercial support for specific customers. And together with Koen, we are both following up the business development side for the Indian subcontinent. So everything that has to do with new projects passes via us.
All right. So when you say the Indian subcontinent, tell me about the focus areas that you have.
Well, it's actually not specifically the Indian subcontinent because Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam are also in there. That has grown organically over time. And that's actually more Southeast Asia. But in that whole region, we mainly focus on India and Vietnam for obvious reasons, economic reasons, obviously. So yeah, I think the other countries are a bit less of our focus. Yeah.
Right. And if you could just expand on that, what is it that India brings in terms of inland waterways that makes it a focus area for you?
Yeah, India has a lot of inland waterways. You have NW1. We also have, of course, NW2, Brahmaputra. We're also in Kolkata, we've worked on inland waterways. So there's a huge potential in terms of the availability of inland waterways. But I also think that in terms of economic development, India is also becoming, I think, factory of the world is not a beautiful way to explain it, but a lot of producing companies and manufacturing companies are looking at India. And then having a reliable inland waterway transport network is a perfect way to ship your goods. So that's why we mainly focus on India in terms of inland waterways.
All right. And how's the project coming along? Could you tell the viewers a little bit about the project specifically that you're working on in Guwahati?
Yeah, looking to the Maritime Indian Vision 2025, 2047. The Sagarmala project, inland waterways, it's a huge chapter within the Maritime Union Vision. And that's why working closely together with the Ministry of Shipping, Ports and Waterways in India as well, we are looking together with the World Bank, with people, with projects, with ports, looking to where we can guide in projects. And that's how Inland Waterways came on our radar. The people from Assam here, the team came to Antwerp as well to look into how our organization, our extended inland waterway system within Belgium/Europe. And that's how we came to this project.
All right. And because you're working on the strategy for the Inland Waterways Department of Assam, when you focus on strategies, what are the key priorities that you look at?
That's a very nice question and a very broad question as well. We are looking towards feasibility. Yeah? So it needs to be a feasible transportation system. The modality is there. We believe in the function of the Brahmaputra as another model or another modality to transport goods, people, and tourism over that waterway. But there are as well some challenges that need to be tackled to make it feasible. And so that's the study we are doing right now. An extra challenging factor is that if you look to the Brahmaputra here in Assam, it's a landlocked river system because you need to go over Bangladesh if you want to make the connection to the other part of the continent of India.
And I also think, if I can add to that, is that we also have to look at the competitors of the Brahmaputra, which are, of course, rail. Of course, now rail in Assam is less used, and road. Everywhere you look into the supply chains, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Southeast Asia, whether here or Latin America, road is king. In Europe, it's the same thing. So you have to make sure that you understand how the road market works, what you're up against in terms of tariffs, and in terms of the amount you have to pay for a container. And from there, you can then adapt your strategy to attract more cargo on the inland waterways.
Right. So from what I understand, Assam, does Assam have a unique position when it comes to its geographical advantage, or do we think that?
Yeah, if you look to the history, when you were under the British Empire, the river Brahmaputra was used to do water transportation of cargo on that water system. Nowadays, it's not there anymore because of political reasons, excuse me. But we do believe in the availability of that water system. There are some challenges, but every inland water system or every inland water river system has challenges. We even face challenges in Belgium/Europe for that inland waterway system. Climate change as well, a huge factor what can disrupt a little bit the use of an inland waterway. But we do believe in the potential of that waterway. Yeah.
All right. And what do you think is the overall impact that the right kind of waterway brings for Assam? If Achille, you could help answer that.
Yeah, prosperity, I think, is the best way to describe it. If you have a good or a well-run inland waterway network that brings cargo generation, that brings economic development, that brings in import, export cargo, people can start to do business with the rest of the world. But of course, as Koen already mentioned, Assam or Brahmaputra does not connect with a port in India. It has to go via Bangladesh. That's the easiest option to go. So that makes it a bit difficult. But I think having that is also beneficial for companies. It's the most cost-effective way of transporting goods. So I think that kind of prosperity, is a good way to describe it, I think.
In addition to that, the environmental aspect as well. If you use or the use of waterways will lower down the environmental impact of the whole supply chain here within Assam and worldwide as well. So a nice combination between different modalities, truck, rail, and waterways is the best thing Assam can do as well, I do believe. And as well for efficiency, efficiency as well. this waterway can help as well to make the supply chain more efficient as well.
And if I can just add, sorry, if you look to beyond the economic advantages, it also has societal advantages. You can take off a lot of trucks off the road. I think we all know that roads in India are sometimes a bit congested. But if you can take that cargo away from the roads, that can lower down the impact on the people and on the villages. And so you lower down your externalities as well. Yeah.
You've both worked across the globe. Specifically, you've done a lot of work in Europe. What kind of best practices are being brought to Guwahati and Assam specifically? If you can shed some light and information on that, some best practices that's going to make Assam one of the leaders when it comes to inland waterways.
It's also a nice question, a challenging question, because every environment has its own challenges, difficulties. You cannot easily copy the best practices from Antwerp river systems or Belgian river systems or American or African river systems towards India that easily. Yeah? So we have the continental challenges, the government rules and regulations that makes it sometimes a little bit more complicated and so on. But the best practices, we can say, we can see that the river system of Brahmaputra is feasible. There are a lot of investments needs to be done to make it feasible. But when that's done, Brahmaputra is a good way to connect the supply chain on a cost-effective way as well here in Assam. Yeah.
Right. See, a lot has been said about Brahmaputra's strength, and how you mentioned that during the British Empire, Brahmaputra was a key river route which was used for trade and the movement of cargo. But maybe not so much, because Brahmaputra has also been very, pardon my lack of detailed knowledge, but it has also been very turbulent. At times it's not very supportive. Sometimes it swells, sometimes it floods. Not your standard best trend. How do you handle that in Brahmaputra? How do you tackle that in terms of technology or in terms of infrastructure?
I do believe, if I can, you can add afterwards. I do believe there are a lot of studies that has to be done and are executed nowadays. So IITM is busy with an hydrographic study. I do believe next to that, the Assam government needs to, or the Assam authority needs to work closely with private partners to make that river navigable. Based on dredging, based on technologies used to make it navigable. So that's the important thing Assam needs to take into account.
Yeah, I also think you already mentioned it. I think Koen already mentioned it as well. And that's something that we see also specifically in African rivers, is when a river floods, when there are floods, and the water level goes down, you take a lot of siltation and a lot of rubbish into the river system. So what you should have is, in the best way possible, you should build 2 big dams on the side of the river to make sure that it can never overflow or can never flood. But that's economically it's impossible. So I think that is what would be very difficult to attain, because we are of the ideology, or we are sure that if you can make it as navigable as possible, so let's say 360 days or 365 days a year, cargo will follow. The market will follow. If you give them 4 meters to work with, they will use those 4 meters. If you give them 2 meters, they will work with those 2 meters as well. If you can give them 10 meters all year round, then there's no issue. But again, it's that cost benefit analysis. What do you have to put in to get out? But we held a stakeholder consultation back in October here in Guwahati, and I think the response from the private sector was so both for cargo and passenger transport was practically the same. They say just make sure that it's navigable as long as possible throughout the year, or as much as possible throughout the year, and we will work with whatever you give us. So in terms of the usage, I don't see any issue with that. Okay, but again, no.
So maybe a mammoth task for the government alone. How do you encourage private investments in the growth of this sector? Is that something we can explore?
Yeah, I do believe we as Port of Antwerp-Bruges International, within all our projects, we help the people, or we can help the people from Assam as well. It's the whole supply chain. It's not just one port on the river system. It's the whole supply chain. It's the first mile connectivity, the last mile connectivity, what's important. So what we mostly do with stakeholders as well is we talk a lot with stakeholders. We talk a lot with companies within our supply chain for Belgium, for Africa, for Vietnam, for India as well, to see where there are opportunities regarding attracting companies to here. We as well are a party who can help and support the Assam Authority to look into that part as well, to discuss with private players, discuss with big companies to see how we can make it feasible on the economic way as well.
If we could do a quantifiable approach to this, what kind of business opportunities are there in the development of this route or the inland waterways? Because the moment people hear, oh, here are 20 different new business opportunities, I think that excites people the most. Can we look at something like that? You think that these are the 10 new avenues that opens up in terms of business opportunities?
There are already a lot of incentive programs for companies within the Assam region. So that's one positive point, I do believe. Next to that, Assam authority needs to see the balance between the import and export needs to be equal, or try to be equal, because the big challenge they have right now, a lot of goods are imported. So it's a full container, for example, and an empty container back. So that's not really the good case. We need to see how we can move a little bit all the cargo handling from road towards a containerized transportation over the river Brahmaputra. You have the minerals, you have the tea, for example. There are a lot of developments, so material needs to be imported. So they need to work as well on the balance between import and export products. But once again, the big challenge will be a good collaboration with Bangladesh. So because you will need to use that river system as well to get connected to India. So that's one other challenge, I do believe.
Okay. So here's a dream kind of question, or a paint a picture kind of question. For our viewers today, can you explain to us the impact of the state-of-the-art Guwahati terminal? What can people expect when they've made the new terminal at Brahmaputra? What can people expect to be looking at? Is there going to be a flux of movement? Is there going to be massive boats moving on Brahmaputra? What is the vision? What sets up?
That's a good question.
And a little bit more difficult, but a challenging one.
Well, I think you mentioned it's a state-of-the-art terminal, so it will probably be, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest one in Guwahati in terms of passenger transport. So you'll be able to berth bigger vessels, so you can at one time transport much more people. So that always helps. Also, I'm not an engineer, but I heard what they're doing is it's let's say a floating terminal, so it adjusts to the way the river adjusts. That's something we have in Antwerp as well. That is always helpful, especially with such a difficult river. And then, of course, if you have a lot of people coming together, it will create some sort of a market effect, in the sense that businesses who are selling or people that want to sell food or drinks can set themselves up on the other side of the road, because you will have a lot of people coming in. You'll need parking spaces, so you can have people we have companies who provide those. So it always brings, when there are people, it always brings some extra economic activity with it. So I think that is maybe, but again, as you mentioned, it's a
but that's a fantastic and a beautiful picture. If we really get that to happen, I think that's amazing. As we wrap up this conversation, I have one key question as a key takeaway. How do you think, with the development of the inland waterway, can Assam position itself as the leader?
For sure. I do believe in the potential, as I said, and it's Assam, for example, here along the Brahmaputra. But I do believe it's not only Assam. We need to look a little bit further as well. So Assam can be the key point, and let's say an authority on how the river needs to be developed as such. But it needs to be taken into account globally for Assam. So it's not regional, it's not a state, so it needs to take everything into account: first mile connectivity, last mile connectivity, and so on.
I also think it could be a vehicle for cross-border trade with countries such as Nepal, Bhutan, also for the other states within the Seven Sisters region. It's the same in Belgium. We have the River Scheldt running through Belgium, and it actually goes into the River Rhine. But all the countries within Europe, they also pay for the usage of that river because they also benefit from that river. And that could be the same thing for Brahmaputra. Of course, then we need to have a connection to a seaport, and that will probably be Chittagong, Kolkata. But Chittagong is the closest one, so that's Bangladesh. So you need to be on speaking terms, let's say, with Bangladesh. But I think if you have that, then it could be the gateway for cargo into the Seven Sisters, but also even cross-border trade.
All right. And two keywords that we've been recently hearing, which is India's maritime economy and regional trade. How does the growth of Brahmaputra ensure this altogether? Maybe your closing statements.
Once again, you need to think a little bit globally as well. You have the climate change. You need to work on the ecological part of your supply chain. It can be used. It will be more, if it's used correctly, it will be more cost effective, more efficient regarding supply chain. And it will help to make Assam as well a region where people come not only for cargo, not only for business, but as well for tourism and so on. So I do believe in the potential of the river. Yeah.
And regional trade, thoughts from you, Achille?
I think I kind of answered the question with my previous answer. I stick to what I said there. I think it can be an enabler for cross-border trade, specifically for these landlocked countries. And that would make then Assam, of course, in the driving seat to look at economic development, to drive investments. And so I think if we can set this up the right way, then the future is bright for Assam.
Super. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge from the Port of Antwerp to our viewers here in Guwahati, and for everything that you're doing here in the city.